Am I the a-hole? Mom said I'm useless, so I stopped helping? Hi, I F20. Live at home with my single mother and 5 siblings while I finish university. I'll call them A M23, B M22, C M17, D F15, and E M12. I am writing this from a corner of the university library, which has basically become my sanctuary over the last week because I can no longer stand the sight or the smell of my own home. To give you some vital context on our living situation, I live in Australia, in an area very close to the city center. If you live here, you know the housing crisis is no joke. Rent is due fortnightly, and for a house big enough to fit 7 people this close to the city, the cost is staggering. Moving out is my ultimate goal, but as a full-time student, it is a financial impossibility. I don't have a traditional job because my degree is intensive, but I receive a small allowance from the government for my studies. Out of that meager payment, I contribute $150 every single week toward the household expenses. My mother doesn't help me with my school fees at all. I've taken out significant student loans to pay for my units. I am essentially paying rent to live in a house where I have been the primary laborer for years. My family comes from a foreign background where my mom's beliefs are very old-fashioned. In our culture, as she interprets it, the domestic life of the house is the sole responsibility of the women. My older brothers, A and B, are both employed and bring home money, so in my mother's eyes, they are kings who should never have to touch a sponge or a vacuum. Because I am a daughter, even though I am also working toward a degree and contributing financially, I am expected to be the maid. Almost every day for the past 3 years, my routine has been the same. It starts at 5:30 a.m. when the house is still quiet. I creep into the kitchen, and the first thing I do is face the wreckage from the night before. My brothers often stay up late playing games, and they leave the remains of their midnight snacks, crusty bowls, open bags of chips, and sticky soda cans, all over the counters. I unload the dishwasher, so it's ready for the breakfast rush. I wash the heavy pots and pans that my mother used for dinner because she doesn't do the heavy scrubbing. By 7 a.m., the chaos begins. I am making sure the younger ones, D and E, have their uniforms ready. I often have to hunt for E's lost sneakers or D's missing blazer because no one else bothers to keep track of their things. I pack their lunches because if I don't, they'll just go hungry or my mother will complain that they have no food. Then comes the school run. I drive them to school, navigating the thick city traffic before racing back to catch my own bus to the university. My lectures are long and my tutorials are intense, but my mind is always half occupied by the to-do list waiting for me at home. I pick the kids up at 3:30 p.m. From that moment until I go to sleep, I am on my feet. I vacuum the common areas, the living room, the hallway, the dining area, because with 7 people, the floors get gritty in less than 24 hours. Dust, crumbs, and tracked-in dirt accumulate at an alarming rate. I move the heavy sofa cushions to get the hair and dirt that settles in the cracks. I clean the bathrooms sporadically, and I mean clean. My brothers, A and B, literally pee on the floor. I don't know if it's bad aim or just total lack of care, but there are always yellow droplets on the tiles and the base of the toilet. They never wipe it up. They just walk away as if a magical fairy will come along and sanitize the porcelain. I'm the one on my hands and knees with the bleach, holding my breath against the smell. Then there is the cooking. Cooking for 7 people isn't a simple task. It's industrial-scale food preparation. I peel pounds of potatoes, chop onions until my eyes sting, and stand over a hot stove for an hour. While I'm doing this, my brothers are in the living room, their headsets on, shouting at people over the internet. They walk through the kitchen, step over the trash bag I'm about to take out, and ask, "When is dinner?" without ever offering to stir a pot. I wipe down the counters and scrub the stove every single night after they've eaten their fill. I encourage my little siblings to clean their rooms, but after seeing my brothers get away with doing nothing, they don't listen. Ultimately, I end up tidying it myself just so the house doesn't smell like a locker room. I have never received a single thank you. No one has ever asked if I'm tired. Everything changed last Wednesday. I had an incredibly heavy day at uni. My last lecture didn't end until 7:30 p.m., and I stayed back for over an hour to talk to my teacher about a specific project I'm worried about. I didn't get home until 9 p.m. I was physically and mentally drained. I had been up since 5:30 a.m., and my brain was fried from 8 hours of intense academic focus. I walked through the front door, hoping for a bit of leftover dinner and some quiet. Instead, I walked into a wall of resentment. My mother was standing in the kitchen, her arms crossed. The kitchen was a disaster zone. The sink was piled high with dirty lunch dishes. There were food scraps on the floor. The air felt heavy. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask if I had eaten. She was livid because I wasn't there to cook dinner. Apparently, my brothers and mother had just sat there waiting for me, and when I didn't show up, they were forced to fend for themselves. She was especially angry because my brother A had to leave work slightly early to pick up the younger siblings from school. In her mind, asking a 23-year-old man to pick up his own siblings once is a grave injustice. I tried to defend myself. I told her I was at uni, that I'm trying to pass my classes so I can get a good job and eventually move us all to a better life. I told her that A and B were home and perfectly capable of boiling pasta. But she wasn't listening. She looked at me with total disgust, her face twisted in a way I'll never forget, and she said, "You're useless. You don't help out at all." That sentence echoed in my head. Useless. I looked at my hands, which were still dry and cracked from the dishwater. I thought about the $150 I give her every week. I thought about the hours I spend in traffic while my brothers play games. I felt a cold, calm anger wash over me. It was like a light switch had been flipped. The part of me that wanted her approval just died. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a fit. I just looked at her, nodded slowly, and said, "Sorry for being useless." I went to my room, locked the door, and didn't come out for the rest of the night. The following morning, I decided to fully embrace being useless. I woke up, but I didn't go to the kitchen. I heard the house start to wake up. Usually, this is when I'm in high gear, managing everyone's needs. I stayed in my bed, listening. I heard E complaining that there were no clean bowls because the dishwasher hadn't been run. I heard D crying because she couldn't find her school tie. I heard my mother calling my name from the hallway, her voice sharp with expectation, then moving into annoyance, then finally into a panicked frustration. I heard the front door slam as she realized she would have to get them ready and drive them to school herself, a task she hasn't performed in over a year. I got up after they left, made myself a coffee, washed my own mug, and left for uni. I didn't touch a single thing that wasn't mine. I didn't come home to make dinner that night. I stayed at the uni library until they closed at 9 p.m. I did this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I have stopped everything. I don't wash a single dish that isn't mine. I don't vacuum. I don't drive. I don't clean the bathroom. I don't cook for anyone but myself. The house has devolved into a state of filth that is hard to describe. Because I'm not there to wipe the counters, there are sticky rings from cups and spilled juice everywhere. The kitchen sink is a mountain of rotting food and crusty plates. It has started to attract fruit flies. Since I'm not driving, a huge conflict has broken out. My mother refuses to drive every day, claiming she has too much to do, and my brothers refuse to waste their petrol or their precious gaming time. As a result, my younger siblings D and E have actually missed a few days of school now. They just stay home, sitting in the mess, while my mom and brothers argue about whose job it isn't to take them. My mom and my older siblings are absolutely livid. Every time I walk through the kitchen to get water, someone is taking a shot at me. Brother A cornered me yesterday, telling me I was being a selfish bitch and that I'm acting like a child for holding a grudge. My mother tells me I'm a shame to the family and that I'm hurting the younger kids' future just to prove a point. They are all united in their anger toward me, yet not one of them has picked up a sponge. Not one of them has offered to cook a meal or load the dishwasher. They would rather live in filth and let the kids miss school than admit that I was the one holding everything together. The emotional toll is getting heavy. Hearing from 5 different people every day that you are useless, lazy, and selfish is exhausting. I've started wearing noise-canceling headphones the moment I enter the house. I stay in the library as long as I can, sometimes just sitting there after I finish my work because I dread the atmosphere of my home. My mother's old-fashioned beliefs mean she thinks she is totally justified in her anger. In her eyes, I am a rebel who is failing her basic duty as a woman. My brothers think they're entitled to my labor because they have real jobs, ignoring the fact that I also contribute financially and work 40-plus hours a week on my degree. I'm starting to feel the pressure. I'm just wondering, AITA? I feel like I'm not, because if I was truly useless, my stopping shouldn't have changed anything. My absence has essentially paralyzed the household, which proves I was doing more than anyone else combined. But the guilt of the kids missing school is heavy. I love my younger siblings, and I hate that they are the collateral damage in this war, even though I know it's not my responsibility to be their only way to get to an education. I feel like I'm being gaslit by my entire family into thinking I'm a monster for wanting the same respect my brothers get. Am I the a-hole? Update. It's been about 2 years since everything happened, and the distance from that time has made it easier to see how much has actually changed. When I first posted, I was sitting in the university library most nights just to avoid going home. Now, that version of my life feels far away, even though at the time it felt like it would never end. After I stopped helping around the house, the situation at home stayed tense for a while. It didn't suddenly resolve itself, and no one had a moment of realization where everything clicked into place. The house stayed messy, arguments kept happening, and the pressure didn't disappear overnight. What changed was how I started handling things outside of that environment. I reached out to my university's student support services not long after making the post. I didn't go in with a clear plan, just the understanding that I couldn't keep going the way I was. They helped me sort through my options and pointed me toward a part-time position at the student help desk. It wasn't a huge income, but it gave me something consistent and a bit of independence. Having my own money, even in a small amount, made a difference in how I approached everything else. Around the same time, I ended my relationship with my boyfriend. It wasn't directly tied to what was happening at home, but it became clear that I didn't have the capacity to maintain it alongside everything else. That part of my life closed quietly, without much conflict, and it removed one more thing I was trying to balance. Back at home, nothing really changed with my older brothers. They kept working, kept coming home, and kept doing nothing around the house. That pattern stayed exactly the same. I didn't step back into the role I had before, but I did make a choice when it came to my younger siblings. I started driving them to school again. It wasn't because anyone asked or because I felt pressured into it. It came down to not wanting them to fall behind because of something they didn't create. The difference was that I wasn't doing everything else alongside it anymore. I limited what I took on and left the rest where it was. The situation reached a turning point when my mom tried to involve my aunt. From what I understood later, she presented things in a way that made it sound like I had simply refused to contribute out of nowhere. I wasn't there for that conversation, so I didn't know what my aunt had been told initially. What I did know was that I needed to speak for myself if it was going to be discussed. I contacted my aunt and explained everything from my side. Not just the argument, but the day-to-day reality leading up to it. I didn't exaggerate anything, just laid out what had been happening and how long it had been going on. Her reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of questioning it, she was shocked by how familiar it sounded. She told me that growing up, she and my mom had been treated in a similar way by their own parents. When they moved to Australia, they had talked about doing things differently if they had families of their own. Hearing that context made a lot of things make more sense, but it didn't change what was happening now. After that conversation, she offered something I hadn't considered possible. She said I could come stay with her, and that my younger siblings could come too if they wanted. She doesn't have children, and she had the space. It wasn't a rushed decision, but it also didn't take long to realize it was the right move. I moved out not long after that. The adjustment wasn't complicated in terms of logistics, but it changed everything about my daily life. The house is about an hour away from my university, so my commute got longer, but the difference in the environment made that feel manageable. It was quiet, structured, and there wasn't that constant sense of tension in the background. My younger siblings moved in as well. The change in them was noticeable within a short time. Without the same atmosphere, they started taking responsibility for their own space. Their rooms stayed clean, they helped with meals without being asked, and there wasn't any resistance to basic routines. My younger brother stopped relying on my sister for everything, and she became more confident in speaking up when something wasn't fair. They also switched to a school that's within walking distance from my aunt's place. Since then, attendance hasn't been an issue at all. That alone removed a lot of the stress that used to sit over everything during the week. I also started therapy not long after moving. It's not something I can afford frequently, so I go about once a month, but even that has helped more than I expected. It gave me a way to process everything without it being tangled up in daily life. It's still something I'm continuing. There's been some contact with my older siblings since then. My brother C reached out after some time had passed and apologized. He acknowledged that he had seen what was happening but didn't think about it because it didn't affect him directly at the time. The conversation was straightforward, and it didn't turn into anything complicated. Things between us are fine now, just not as close as before. He also mentioned that things at home shifted after I left. The responsibilities I used to handle didn't disappear, they just had to be taken on by someone else. According to him, our mom started expecting him to step into that role, which led to conflict between them. He told me he was planning to move out and live with a friend, which didn't surprise me given how things were going. As for my mom, there hasn't been much direct contact. The distance has stayed in place, and neither of us has tried to change that. It's not something I've pushed to resolve, especially while everything else has been stabilizing. On a more positive note, I finished my degree. Graduation felt very different from how I imagined it years ago, but it was still important. My aunt and my younger siblings came, and that was enough. I didn't reach out to my mom about it. I've also been accepted into a graduate RN program at the hospital where I completed my final placement. That part of my life is starting now, and it's the first time in a long while that things feel like they're moving forward in a direction I actually chose. Looking back, the situation didn't fix itself, and there wasn't a single moment where everything changed. It was a series of decisions that gradually shifted things into something more stable. The environment I'm in now is completely different from where I started, and that difference shows up in every part of daily life. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.